Okay, so I didn't know how many people from Leo would have attended LGfL training before, so I'm just going to do a really quick recap about LGfL before I get into the content, which is about using LGfL resources to support science and the humanities. So as Graham said, I'm Laura, I'm a learning resource consultant, and I did used to teach in Sutton for many years before I moved to LGfL just over 2 years ago, I think. So I'll be leading the training, and hopefully Leo support staff will be managing the chat, and any problems with kind of Flash Player and Chrome and things, I'm hoping they will help. So we're a not-for-profit charity, and any profit that we do make each year, we reinvest and hopefully save schools lots of money. Another aim is keeping children safe, tackling inequality. Today, I'm hopefully going to help energise teaching and learning, and we also promote wellbeing. So despite the fact that we're now National Grid for Learning, we are a very small team on the Inspire team. So the lovely mugshots that you see on the screen, the 7 of us have all been teachers in a prior life. Well, still teachers, but we are now working to inspire people in school to harness the tech. So on the top row, you've got Bradley, who's delivering some training tomorrow at Leo, Bob, who's the content manager, myself, and then here you've got Adam, who's delivering training next week, Jose, who's a Microsoft expert, but has also taken on onboarding for us, where we've gone out to Essex and other places, and then finally Mark and Mabina, who are part of the DigiSafe team. So we're hopefully going to create a relationship between LGfL content and your classroom practice. Today, I'm going to hopefully make you more aware of the vast breadth and depth of resources within LGfL, and to give you the confidence to use LGfL resources to their full potential. So our job as the Inspire team is to obviously get you to use the resources, but within that role, we also write blogs weekly-ish, a newsletter that goes out monthly, and then we deliver training sessions like you're getting now, but probably a bit unusually online in this day and age, whereas normally we'd come into schools and deliver the training there. And also we deliver training at our headquarters in Liverpool Street and at the Camden CLC. So before I go on, I just wanted to check that you'd all seen today's news that Leo Academy Trust, CCJ, won the Digital Excellence Award. So every year we have awards. This year there were 5 categories, and if you didn't know, Cheam Common Junior won the cloud transformation. So well done, everyone. I've put the Twitter link in there, so you've got these PowerPoint slides. You can have a look later if you didn't see that. Okay, so first up, when you're going on to LGfL.net, sorry to say this, but in normal times, when you're on the school premises, it recognises the IP address. So for most of the resources, you don't have to log in. But obviously, when you're at home, when we haven't got coronavirus, you need to use your USO. And I believe that you have your Google account and it's a .319 on the end. So going into LGfL.net, you'll be prompted to log in. If you haven't got that today, don't worry, I've got a workaround for some of the other things. So we have about 140 resources. I'm not going to go through all of them in the next hour, don't worry, but hopefully I'll whet your appetite and you'll be able to use some of the ones you didn't know about. So the way to look for the resources on LGfL, there's kind of 3 ways, I would guess. So the 4th tab in from the left, Learning Resources, you can use the drop down to look for a Discover, and you can discover resources via subject, key stage and programme of study. And then in the sort of Omnis search, you can put in the name of the resource when you know what you're looking for. So just to explain why you get a summary page when you're looking at the resources, obviously we're a broadband provider and a not-for-profit charity, but in case there's people out there who are looking at our services that don't currently get their broadband provided by us, it just tells them a bit about the resource. And when you get to this landing page, the summary page, you always are wanting to launch the resource from the red button at the top. Okay, so I'm going to come out and jump into LGfL.net. I'll already be logged in. Hopefully you're logged in already. and I want you to think about either a current topic or a topic that you're going on to, and we're very briefly going to search via the learning resources. So discover, subject, and obviously because we were looking at humanities, I'm going to pick history. And then imagining I was a Key Stage 2 teacher, I can obviously find history topics that are covered via LGfL. So I'm just going to give you no longer than a minute to search for resources that way, and then I'll be carrying on with the PowerPoint and going more in depth with some of the resources. Just before moving on to busy things, we have got some resources that were made a fair while ago, and while they're high quality resources, they were built with Flash Player. So Adobe are actually retiring Flash Player at the end of this academic year. So if they're particularly old resources, then they'll have this legacy resource tab so that you'll know that come December, no devices will support them. I know that Chromebooks often don't allow Flash Player. You have to go in and kind of tick it on. So that's just to be aware of, that some of the legacy resources have this little label, and it's because they're based on Flash Player. The other thing that I'd like to point you towards is LGfLTV, which has kind of different channels. If you've never been to our conferences before, you can look at the keynote speakers. Some of the workshops from some of the conferences are also on there, but there's whole different kind of channels that you can look at, and there's trailers and other things. I will be showing you one later. This is just to say that in 2018, so a couple of years ago, I did do some curriculum mapping with Brookfield. So I have sent the link to Graham, and he can put it on the centralised, on the clouds and share it across all the trusts. But I'm not sure whether you do all to the same topic as Brookfield. But that's just to say there are links to their topic titles that Brookfield had an inset on that you might want to look at. Okay, so we're going to particularly focus on the big five, as I'm calling it this afternoon. Busy Things is the first resource that we're going to start with. So I'd like you to open a new tab just in case you're in a school that hasn't set up Busy Things with the data declaration. So I'm just going to put busythings.co.uk in a moment. When you've done that, you'll get to this login, and for today and a couple of days' time, if your school hasn't got the data declaration set up, then you could use this demo LGfL, demo LGfL. So that's the username and the password. Once you're into the demo account, or if you know that your school's account is working, then it will either say the name of the school or LGfL for your homepage of the demo. So in Busy Things, by default, it has the key stages set up. So you've got an early years area, a key stage 1 area, and a key stage 2 area. And I'm going to show you some of the different teacher tools that are here on the left-hand side that are useful to know about. And then we're going to dive in and look at some particular activities. So there's lots of different activity types on Busy Things. So there's games, there's writing projects, there's quizzes, and the beauty of the quizzes is that it does self-marking. So when you're using like a geography resource to label a map, when the children do it, they can mark it and they can get a score out of however many it is. So we're going to be thinking about what's your topic and using the curriculum browser in Busy Things. I'm going to show you setting up a class and year group page within them so that you can then use the pin function, which makes it easier to get to the activities. And we're also going to look at the special events calendar to see Busy Things and their pre-made collection. So I'm just going to go out into Busy Things. Because Busy Things is one of our popular resources, when you put it in the home page, you have to scroll through lots of the kind of videos and tutorials and the links to curriculum blogs. So when you go in via the USO site, you have to pick normal USO. And then this is hopefully the page that you're on if you're using the demo account. So the special events tab here, each month you can see there's different special events. So Science Week, and what Busy Things have done is when you click on that special event, they've already pinned activities that might be useful for, in this case, British Science Week. So that's a really nice feature that any kind of event that is looked at in the UK tends to be within the special events. There was a tab for last week's London Maths Week, and you can see down this side, they also put updates for what they've recently launched. So the things that we're going to use this afternoon are the curriculum browser and the search. The search is more sophisticated than an LGfL search function. You can put in a name, or a search term, and obviously it then comes up with different activities to do with the word farm. You can narrow the search by changing the age range, etc. So that's one doing a search via a search term. But the way that we're going to do this afternoon is via the curriculum browser. So obviously where we were looking at science and humanities, if I go into Key Stage 1 Science, you can see that it's split into the domains: working scientifically, living things, plants, etc. What's nice about the geography part, let me go in here, is you have the different areas of geography. As I mentioned, the quizzes are self-marking quizzes. So within the maps, there's quite a lot of, they call them interactive worksheets. If I just open one to demonstrate. And then obviously you can drag and drop, and you can mark it as you go along, and you can also reset it. Just while I'm on this screen, I know that you make use of Google Classroom, but up here you'll see that there is a little pin. So you can pin these activities, because obviously some of them are quite a few clicks. So if I go to add to an existing pin, I'm going to demonstrate when you've set up your classes. So because this is our demo account, I've got an LGfL LS for my initials. And let's say I was wanting this to go as part of a Child's War topic. I'd choose the pin that I want to add it to, and then I confirm. And then when I go back into my setup from the home page, you can see this is my class. And I put it in a Child's War. So you can see I've already assigned things, but there's the one that I've just done. So I'm going to give you a little while to go in and have a look for some activities to do with history, geography and science. As we're a small group, I'll perhaps not give so long. But yeah, have a go looking at the curriculum browser, and also do explore the pin function. Don't worry if you're using the demo account, just pin it and we'll delete it later. So I'll sit back and let you have a little bit of a browse for yourself, and I'll try not to talk over it, which is difficult when you're sitting looking at a PowerPoint screen. I very often don't manage not speaking when I've told you I'll give you some time. So just to remind you that in LGfLTV, within the Learning Resource channel, there's a Busy Things dedicated channel. And if you're wanting to re-watch about the pin function or setting up class management and stuff, you can look in there. There's short 2 to 3 minute tutorials for most of the things that you'd want to do within Busy Things. Be quiet again. Okay, hopefully that's given you some time to explore the different subject areas. So you can see within science, there's quite a few of the different topics that you might cover. Within geography, you've got the different domains of the human and physical geography, and quite a lot of the topics that people cover as a half-termly topic are in there. There are quite a few writing templates, so it might be that you use those in addition to the quizzes and the Google Classroom setup that you use, but there's some quite nice ideas and you can assign them. So if I just come out of this PowerPoint and just go back to busy things, where you have, say, this active worksheet, when you start, this little snail-like arrow, when you go onto there, you can see that you can create a shortcut, which you could then obviously copy and paste into your Google Classroom, and then that would get the children straight into that activity. So that was just once you've launched the activity, the little sort of arrow with a loop, if you like, looks a little bit like a snail to me. That is where you can create a shortcut, make the shortcut and copy and paste that in so they get directly into that busy things activity. Okay, I'm hoping that you've had a good look around busy things. Because it was humanities and science, I just want to mention that if you teach French in your Leo Academy, there is some nice French and also Spanish activities. So there's some nice quizzes and things there with flashcards and things as well. So do make sure that your modern foreign language teachers know about that. And also with regards to RE, there's some nice activities in there too. Okay, so back to the PowerPoint. For the writing templates, you'll find that some of them are linked in the history anyway, but if you look in English and composition, there's quite a few sort of digital pieces of paper that you could do historical recounts, and you could use the comic strip to do a kind of timeline of events or different historical events to put the pictures as well as the text in there.
Laura, can I just come in with a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
So Dawn's just asked, if we copy a link to Google Classroom, do the children then need to use their login details to access busy things?
Yeah, so because it's cloud-based, they would still need, I presume it would be the same as the Google Classroom with the teachers, just the .319, and then it should sync up.
Yeah. But would they have to do that every time then? Or if they've saved it, it won't?
So to get them from the activity to launch it, because it's obviously identifying that you're an LGfL customer, yes, you would have to. And then they can save it to the class area in busy things, or they could do a screenshot and put it into their Google Classroom kind of document. Depends how you want to work it as a school. But obviously, if you get the class setups done, you can get the children to put their name and save it in the classroom area. Okay?
Thank you.
No worries. So switched on science, sos.lgfl.net if you're putting it in a Google search. This is the Rising Stars switched on science scheme of work. Now this version is the 2014 version that was written when it's not so new now because we're 6 years on, but the new curriculum came into play. They have had a newer version since in Rising Stars, where I think they've added some more videos and things, but obviously this is in line with the content and the domains that you should be teaching. So these are just screenshots of each of the year groups. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. You won't see that on the LGfL homepage anywhere. That's me taking screenshots of each of the different areas. So I've gone into a year 1 and I've picked the topic holiday because unfortunately no one's going on one currently. And you can see that within each of the topics, you've got a teacher's guide. You've got teacher slides, which are PowerPoints that you can edit, and obviously you could copy and paste them into your Google Slides. Then you've also got a limited amount of pupil activity sheets. But I think the best bit of Switched On Science is you've got a teacher video, which talks you through an experiment that you might want to do with your class. And then you've also got a pupil video, which is filmed and aimed at children of that age group. And then the final one is a link to LGfL resources. So any LGfL resources that we think would link back to the holiday topic, there's a document with hyperlinks to those. So I'm going to come out of this and go into Switched On Science, but the idea is for you to have a look at Switched On Science. So remember, launch the resource from the red. I'm going to pretend I was a year 3 teacher and then go into Earth Rocks. And when you click on the teaching slides, it downloads it. And then once it's finished, you'll see that within each of the PowerPoints, there's some key vocabulary. And there's also the coverage of the topic. So there's one PowerPoint per topic. So it might be that you split it into weeks. It depends how you want to edit and use it. But I think it's quite nice for just starting off planning without a blank sheet of planning. And you do know that you've covered all the national curriculum statements that you need to cover within that topic. So I'm just going to give you a little while to look at either your current year group, or if you already know where you're teaching next year's year group, and to have a look at some of the topics that you might be covering. Okay, next up, I'm going to talk you through Widget. So if you notice, when you're putting it into LGfL.net, it's an I at the end, not an E, as you sometimes see for widgets, as in symbols. So Widgets, the LGfL version, is about 10% of the communication in print resource that the company sell as a standalone product. Now that standalone product is device-only licenses, so quite often if schools have invested into Widgets, they often only have it on the Senko's computer or in a PPA room. So this version on LGfL that you can access at least gives you access to some of the symbols and things from home. So I'm just going to show you the screenshots that I've done on here, and then I'll go into it live. So you can go to the symbol library, and it works a bit like a supermarket shop. If you put in the keyword that you're looking for, you can then search the library of symbols. I'm just going to apologise if you can hear my neighbours. They're doing DIY, so they've started banging. And then also the widget activities, there's bundles of activities if you like, so don't be put off by the number, although history has got quite a lot already. You can see there's 21, but in the case of geography, there's a bundle of activities for rivers, a bundle of activities for mountains, etc. And then the other thing to point out is within the widget activities, there's also classroom resources. So although this was humanities and science, do remember that if you want behavioural prompts, it might be a good place to look. And also this communication friendly environments is a nice place for if you're starting to label up trays and get ready for next year. So we're just going to spend some time looking at widgets and exploring the symbols. I'm going to go in here. Launch the resource. So in the symbol library, if you wanted to maybe put gladiator, you can see that there's a couple of images for gladiator. Now you can do a right-hand click and copy that image if you're only using it in like a talk for writing kind of, small image. But if you want a better high resolution image of that symbol, then it's best to download it and obviously get the PDF version afterwards. So in the widget activities, if I go into history, and let's go to Remembrance Day, you can see that there's books and there's also activities. And when you go to the download worksheet area, you can see that it's downloading all those worksheets, and you've got different formats. So you've got text only, supported text, symbol, simplified, one symbol. And obviously, depending on the children's ability, you look at the different kind of differentiated worksheets there. So you can see that in World War I symbol book, once it opens, there's some nice symbols for children. Perhaps if you get any children joining you with English as an additional language, it might be that you make up like a little key ring with some of these symbols on, so that they've got the keywords and spelling, and they can also hopefully get to grips with some of the key vocabulary from that topic. So within each of the bundles, you'll see that there's lots of different activities and PDFs. So I'm just going to give you a moment to have a little look in some of those. Remember, there's history, geography, and there's also science. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the mixed reality resources. Now, I know that at CCJ, you have a set of these headsets. We were having a discussion about with coronavirus, obviously they'd need to be wiped down. In the other schools, if you haven't got those, you can get these sorts of headsets called cardboard headsets that obviously use iPhones or different devices that, it depends on the school policy. You might be able to get parents to donate devices and factory reset them, but obviously that's a school decision and something you'd need to then factory reset in order to use the Wi-Fi. So each of the augmented reality resources, I'm going to tell you the titles we have in a moment, but the kind of best way of showing you where I can't physically show you the booklets and things was to do screenshots. So each of the topics that we have an active worksheet booklet like the one that's on the PowerPoint. Then within the booklet, the pages look a bit like this. And where there's a little symbol, you see this AR symbol, it tells you that that hosts a trigger image behind it. So then using your mobile phone or your iPads or whatever, you know, they are hopefully developing it so that the next lot of Chromebooks has this facility in it, because obviously more and more schools are using augmented reality. Hopefully that'll be a development that Chromebooks get with their capabilities. I'll just play you what it looks like when you hover over the little trigger image of the Roman soldier. So in this particular case, this trigger image then goes to a quiz that's hosted where you try and label the different names of the parts of the legionary's uniform. So that was augmented reality. Now I am going to show you a video that lasts for 3 minutes and 9 seconds about significant people and events, because I think the beauty of these kind of resources is that you see it better. So I'm hoping the sound is loud enough on here. If not, obviously the link is in there.
As we demonstrated our resources around schools, it became clear that there was a requirement for Key Stage 1, and that was one we were keen to meet. And we did that using the topic significant people and events. So what we've done, we've taken people such as Tim Berners-Lee, Edith Cavell, William Caxton, Neil Armstrong, and events such as the Great Fire of London, the Great Plague, the moon landings, and we've recreated those using augmented reality. And of course, as with all active lens, active worksheets resources, we spun those out across the curriculum as well and made them as interactive as possible. Significant people and events have some really interesting augmented reality interactions. We worked hard to build some interesting and different ways that pupils can interact with the augmented reality content. So, for example, the Caxton Press, you can type in text, which you can then see printed onto a piece of paper, so that pupils can actually see their own words being printed by the press. So some of the really interesting resources we built in include the Great Fire of London, which is very popular in schools. And we've built almost an interactive play set, if you were, that allows pupils to move around houses and see how fire spreads more easily if houses are closer together. We've also looked at the plague in London in 1666, and we spent a long time recreating quite a detailed map from that time, which has population density mapped across it, and the pupils can actually choose a point on this map to start the plague, and they can see, depending on the population density, how quickly that plague spreads through London. We've also looked at Peter Bruegel the Elder, who's a famous painter, maybe quite obscure and quite interesting that he popped up in the curriculum, but he was interesting that he looked at the peasantry rather than nobles. And we've introduced an AR that allows pupils to take a picture either of themselves or of a pupil, and this inserts their face into quite a famous Bruegel painting. For the VR experience for significant people and events, we looked at a personal favourite of mine, which is the Apollo 11 moon landings. And we spent a long time painstakingly recreating the Apollo 11 landing sites. And this is based on documentation we obtained from NASA. So it's a very accurate recreation of that site, which the pupils can explore, they can walk around. And we also spent a lot of time making sure that they are jumping around the moon rather than just simply gliding, to provide a really interesting and realistic experience. On the VR side, we've recreated the Apollo 11 lunar landing site from 1969 in very accurate detail. We've included the experiments that the astronauts took there. Pupils can go around and wander the moon and look at those experiments, see what they're all about, and feel what it's like to be inside Neil Armstrong's spacesuit.
Okay, so within each of the different resources that we have, the reason I put the LGfLTV symbol there is when you click in there, if you go to learning resources, there's quite a few of our resources that have a resource walkthrough, and it takes you through the resource. And then there's also trailers. Not all of them have that, but it is worth having a look. So within augmented reality, which is the trigger image hosted behind, we've got these topics, which you might cover in history or geography. So the Explore Geography one has lots of different geographical kind of concepts. My niece, when she saw this a couple of years ago, said that the plate tectonics, it really made it clear how it worked rather than just reading about that in a text. So there's some really good graphics that kind of piece together the understanding. So they're all augmented reality ones. And if I just hold up the paper copy of the Romans, I know that you obviously don't have a set of iPads and things, so don't think that none of this is relevant, because in the booklet, within the first page, you'll see that there's different activities and worksheets. And even if you don't use the augmented reality side of it, there is a wealth of information in here that the children could use. And obviously, if you tell them about the worksheet, if they've got a smartphone at home, they could then download the app for free and perhaps use the paper worksheets at home to look at the augmented reality hosted behind it. But there's some really nice activities within the booklet, even if you haven't got the devices to use for the augmented reality side of it. Likewise, with the virtual reality, they touched on some of the space adventures. So the company have used some of the space adventures VR within the significant people and events. But this resource is all about a female astronaut who goes on a failed mission to the moon to get some rare materials needed to build smartphones. And it's a really nice resource for lots of Year 5 to use it, where they look at the vlogs that she sends back. But there's also some lesson plans in there for maths, science, computing and English. So well worth a look if space is something you cover, particularly in Key Stage 2, but there'd also be some nice activities perhaps that you could look at for lower down the school. So the other ones have all got some sort of virtual reality part to them. Then Fossils and Dinosaurs is our most recent mixed reality resource. So it has a mixture of augmented reality with the triggers as well as virtual reality that you use with headsets. But what's nice about Fossils and Dinosaurs, because we know it's a topic that early years often are very interested in, Bradley, who's a early years specialist, has put together PowerPoint, 6 lessons with a key question like, what were dinosaurs? And what did dinosaurs eat? And within there, he's also put recipes for making fossils and things. So lots of Year 3s often do rocks and soils. It might be that they could adapt some of the PowerPoints to suit a Year 3 audience as well. And certainly the Key Stage 1 and 2 area has a paleontologist talking about the study of fossils and putting right some sort of misconceptions about it. So I thought that rather than show you all the different trailers, it might be that you want to look for a particular topic that I've just shown you and see whether there's a walkthrough. Obviously, it's hard to judge whether there's a topic that you're looking at, so I'll literally only give you a minute to look in LGfLTV and see the trailer for that resource. Okay, I'm going to carry on. So sorry if you were in the middle of a really good video. Hopefully you can go back to it at the end. So it's always hard to judge when you don't know in a primary school whether you've got EYFS involved. So apologies if none of you on this call are EYFS, but do make sure that your EYFS colleagues know about this resource. When you put in the search for EYFS-Spotlight, currently there's 8 typical EYFS topics that are live, soon to go up to 14. If I just go on to the next page, you can see that I've picked a history one, my home and local area. Now, within each of those, when you launch them, you can see that there's a little brief description of the activity. And then when you click on the red launch resource, it will take you to that resource. So quite a few of these screenshots are something called J2E, which Bradley's covering tomorrow, Just Too Easy. But if you've never explored Just Too Easy, do go in there. But I didn't want to step on his toes where it's in his coverage. But the EYFS Spotlight is great for your typical EYFS topics. And obviously, if you're a Key Stage 1 teacher and you've got children working below their chronological age, it might be that there's some activities that you could use and supplement what they're doing in there. So they are the big 5. However, there are some topic-specific resources for history and geography that I wanted to show you and share with you. And obviously, quite often you only do them once a half term. So it might be that you've just covered one in summer and you didn't know it was there, or it might be that it's an autumn topic. So I'm going to go through some topic titles and then give you a little bit of time to explore. So you're going to go putting it in the top when you know the short link. So I've already told you about space adventures. If you're a year 5 teacher and space is one of your topics, then do go into space adventures and particularly go to the lesson plans that are there as activities. And there are some Google slides and things that you could obviously adapt. So space adventures is worth a look if that's one of your topics. Unfortunately, virtual experiments is one of the soon to be retired resources, but I used to love using virtual experiments. When your experiment doesn't quite go to plan and you want to look at a set of results that you were expecting, virtual experiments is a really nice resource to use. What's nice about it as well is it has little quizzes and it also has key vocabulary. So it's arranged in year 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. So you'll see that there's the whole coverage of the national curriculum, and it's unfortunately flash-based, so it won't be with us for long, but it is worth looking at. Then other particular topics that people seem to cover, we've got Romans. So that was mentioned in the augmented reality in that there's a pack with trigger images. There is also a whole kind of host of, I guess, traditional PowerPoint type lessons that take each of the things like the Roman army, Roman clothing, Roman daily life, and you could base your whole Roman topic around each of those kind of different themes. So do look in there. There's some nice high quality photography where Roman artifacts are shown in museums, and it's worth a look for those resources alone. Tudors, again, is similar to the Romans. Unfortunately, there's no augmented reality booklet with that one, but the Tudors in London, obviously filmed at Hampton Court, and there's lots of recreations of Henry VIII and different things. Viking Adventures at the British Museum, similar in that when you go to the top menu, you can go through different themes to do with Viking adventures. Then down the bottom, lots of schools seem to do sort of Frozen Kingdom, Antarctic and Arctic, higher up the school in year 6. So this polar exploration follows the historic exploration expeditions that people travelled on. It's really quite surprising, the clothing, how thin it was when they went on their expeditions. No wonder they got frostbite. But it's really a very thorough look at polar exploration, and has their journals and different things that you can explore to see how those historical explorations happened. Queen Victoria has some beautiful photography and kind of artwork for looking at the life of Queen Victoria. And if you're doing the Victorians, obviously that would be a nice thing to look into. History of computing is probably quite a dry resource, but it has got some really fascinating facts and things, and ties in with another resource on the next page, women in computing. So it studies, and it might be nice for your, if you do World War II, children to look at women in computing and the history of computing to see what an effect women had on Bletchley Park and breaking the code and helping to, end World War II. So as I say, it's a bit of a dry look at it, but there's some really nice video clips of the women who were involved at Bletchley Park and breaking the code. Then back over to this side, if you do a topic of rivers, or indeed a London topic, the River Thames in London is a really nice look. You have an interactive map, and you can click on the different points along the River Thames, and it will give you a description of some of the key features of the river and also the surrounding area, so buildings and other things on the River Thames. Developing British values, obviously within your PSHE, having a look at British values and covering off some of the key content in there. Then this is in its infancy. So we have got a resource that uses ArcGIS, the science of where. Unfortunately, the pilot study of the schools that were going to look at it and develop the resources has come to a bit of a standstill with the pandemic at the moment. But ArcGIS apparently has a whole load of data, and you can even plot like a GCSE kind of gradings and look at locations and compare and contrast different locations and those grades. So ArcGIS can take a whole load of data sets from various bodies, and you can find out information to do with location. Then Growing Up Around the World is a really lovely look at children all around the world, and they've filmed them at various points of their life. I always say this comes with a bit of a cautionary tale though, because unfortunately one of the children who's featured growing up in Africa doesn't survive past the age of 14. So I would say that if you're looking at that with children, it's better to do that one in class when you've got the children in front of you, rather than highlighting it in the current situation, because I think it's one that definitely needs an adult giving discussions to it. So I know there's quite a few there, but obviously they are topic specific. So it might be that you just kind of take a note of them or look at this PowerPoint at a later date to have, but just bear in mind, if there's any of those geography or history topics that you cover, do remember there's a comprehensive coverage of them. Then BBC sound effects. If you're doing like World War II, there are some artillery sounds and other things that I think you could set the scene for. If you're doing an air raid, perhaps you could play the air raid siren and just get children thinking about what it was like to live in those times, and perhaps recognise some of the sounds that people would have experienced. Then, as I said, I'm not going to cover the J2E tool suite today, but Bradley will be covering it tomorrow. But there is a way that you can do an online book. If some of your Key Stage 1 children want to present topic work, you can see there's a really nice tool within there that you can do writing and painting and all sorts. But as I say, I'm not covering that today. So I'm not going to ask you for your feedback on here, but have a think about what you can use in LGfL for next week, next term, and in the long term. Do remember some of those topics that I mentioned that you might not cover until like spring term. So just remember that they're there. And then I know that obviously I've delivered training today for Leo Academy, but if you ever want training on specific things like Adobe or just Too Easy, we're currently running lots of online training that happens in the mornings and the afternoons. So do have a look at training.LGfL.net, and you can book into that training. And the Zoom calls are busy things, you know, helping you with particular questions and stuff. Hello, I can hear you, Graham.
Sorry, I was just coming in to say I started writing some notes, and then I decided to stop because I was like, this is probably enough for us to think about for September. But just to say a huge thank you to Laura for you for doing that. Dawn, just whilst you're here, are there any specific questions for you that you wanted to ask, just about in terms of the Part Farm curriculum and anything that you think we should be as a trust sort of following up as well?
No, there was some really good stuff on there and some things that would link really nicely to our curriculum areas. I think I'd just like to play with how to get it onto Google Classroom and the links there. But no, there's some really lovely resources that I'm sure that the children would love to use and we're going to enjoy and make it more fun. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
You're welcome. And it's always difficult because obviously only one year group cover like the Tudors or Romans. So hopefully it wasn't too quick, but it also made you aware of some resources that perhaps you didn't necessarily know about.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I was aware of some of them. It's just reminding you that they're out there, and then yeah, it brings it back into focus. Yeah.
No worries.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Tomorrow's is, as you say, tomorrow's is with Bradley, I believe. Is that right, Laura?
Yeah, Bradley was just too easy. I think computing, isn't it? I can't remember way round it was that he was doing it.
Most important curriculum subject there is.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for both your time and have a lovely evening, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. No worries. See you.